Andy, no stairway.
No stairway. Denied.
Today on the Rushmore Show, we're shredding with our top guitarists of all time. And guess what? We got so many, we couldn't even fit it in 4. Let's get it!
Welcome to the Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top 4 and nothing more. And Andy, it is the second week of March. I had so much fun hanging out with Dennis. You and Dennis used to be in the same band, and man, it was great having him come on and just go over vocalists with us. Man, it was such a great time. I'm seeing the comments already, and people obviously agree and disagree with us as usual. But, you know, we're going to continue moving this train on. We're going to build our Rushmore of the greatest band of all time this March. And we're going to jump right in this week and do the Rushmore of guitarists. What do you think about that, Andy?
Dude, this is going to be so fun. I even brought my guitar along with us today. So
I did too.
Yeah, look at that. You can play the orange chord, the blue chord, the yellow chord. So many options on that thing.
It's the only guitar I could play, and I wasn't even really good at this. So I usually in Guitar Hero really was the one that wanted to drum. I just love drumming. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
So,
it's fun. So we're going to shred
that's the
today.
only guitar I can play right there, man.
How
long have you been playing, Andy?
I've been drums are my main instrument. I played that for, I don't know, close to 20 years now. But I wanted to pick up something that was a little bit easier to do, less hardware and moving things around and whatever. So I don't know, for probably about the past 15 years or so, I've kind of played guitar. Not really in lessons.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You started off drumming in a band. Mm-hmm. And then you guys like redid the band, and then came back, and then you kind of did like a Dave Grohl thing, right? You stopped being the drummer and you started doing like guitar. Is that what we're doing?
I look, in my wildest dreams, if I could be compared to Dave Grohl at all, it's an honor.
Oh, well, I just did, man. Your dreams are coming true. So there you go.
No, so you know, we talked about it last week. Dennis and I, the bands that we were in, one of the bands, and I put a sort of clip in the last episode as well. It was Everyone She Knows. Take my hand and we'll fly higher as we laugh and dance tonight the parties and stars, so we can be totally free. Feel the music running. And I just wanted to change it up, so we played guitar. And it was a lot of fun. And Dennis played bass, so he wasn't really the vocalist.
So you got to tell me, Everyone She Knows, where'd that name come from? Can we say that online?
Yeah. Man, like most of our band names, there was no meaning behind it. I'm just going to tell you.
Just a couple words thrown together that sounded really hip and cool.
Yeah, our drummer, who was also in the metal band as the bassist, again, you mentioned kind of revamp things. He just like brought it up one day at a practice. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. Everyone She Knows. Boom. And there you go. That's the band name.
I'm just, side note, every single band that I've ever followed, my favorite thing to do is to Google them and see if there's an explanation of how they became a band, how they named their band, and then like if there's a hit song and they're talking about like a girl or something, like is that his girlfriend, or did they just write that? You know, that's like 3 of my favorite things to do when I go into music. So, gosh, I'm excited about this. Look, all you guys out there in the Rushmore community, we really wanted to nail out a few things doing Rushmores. Music is probably on the Rushmore of Rushmore things to do. Sports, music, movies, and just any other kind of things that we've kind of thrown in there, food, but music is up at the top. And kind of awesome that we starting it off now, because I'm even thinking like next March, what are we going to do? But there's so many different ways we could have rolled with this. But I figured the best way, as Andy and I talked, the best way is to nail out the number ones of all the instrument pieces. So I think without further ado, Andy, let's jump in to our Rushmore of guitarists.
Let's shred it up.
Shred it up, baby. right, Andy, we're going to jump into the Rushmore of guitarists. But first off, tell me what your criteria was into choosing your top 4.
All right. So my criteria, how did I pick it? How did I narrow it down to 4? That's a great question that I don't have an answer for. But if I had to give you my criteria, because it's so difficult, but my criteria is, it's easier for me to throw certain things out. I don't jump at just technical ability. I don't just jump at the guy who has the cleanest solo, because if there's probably going to be, if you're a guitarist out there or a musician and you have way more knowledge of the instrument than I do, you're going to point out flaws in every one of the guitarists that I share today. However, what I did was that, what's always interesting to me, this is how I want to say it. What's interesting to me is that last week we talked about vocalists, and it's one thing for somebody with their own voice to be memorable. Like, you can tell a voice, right? But for somebody on an instrument side to take an inanimate object like a guitar and make it speak and give it a signature sound, and for you to be able to tell that it is this person behind this inanimate object making that sound, immediately throws it right up there onto my Rushmore. It's an iconic, memorable, without a doubt, who it is. Or if somebody's mimicking it, you could say, wow, they're ripping so-and-so off. Like, it's just a signature sound. So
there's certain guys that, only like 1 or 2 chords, and you're like even in the Name the Tune that we did last week, when you play Name That Tune with real songs, some of it, they just have to hit one note and you can automatically pick it out.
Absolutely. So my criteria, my number 1, my only really thing that matters to me is a signature sound, right? So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my Rosie, my number 4. This guy probably does not make very many people's, or at least critics' top list, although he is one of the most famous ones out there. His name is David Evans, but most people know him by his stage name, Edge. Edge from U2 is my Rosie on my Rushmore of guitarists. Again, probably not the most technical, like, he's not playing solos and all kinds of crazy stuff while he's playing. However, man, the sound that he makes out of the guitar, many people, actually, this is an interesting note. Both of us, as Christians, as churchgoers, you listen to a lot of contemporary Christian music or Christian music within the church, worship songs and things like that. Edge is actually considered one of the founding fathers of the sound that is known as contemporary Christian guitar now.
Right. And you told me that a little while ago, and I was like, wow, I could see it though. I could see it.
So he does a lot of things with effects and kind of just that ambient feel. And if you listen to Christian music now, it's full of that kind of stuff. So huge, heavy influence in that. U2 started out as a Christian band, actually, playing in churches and things like that. I grew up in my household, and maybe part of the reason he makes my Rushmore is that all throughout my childhood, my adolescence, my mom is a huge, huge fan of U2. So we would listen to that all of the time. So the members of U2 actually kind of feel like family members to me. I feel like I grew up.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you said U2. I was like, oh, a little paying homage to the mom.
Yeah, she's a big fan.
You mentioned it to me more than once. That was her thing.
Yeah, and not just that. I mean, like, just listen to their songs. Their songs are really good, man. They've got some really killer stuff. They go through a lot of different things, and a lot of really good bands I find do this, where they start off sounding some kind of way, but they're not afraid to explore other things too. They have a bluesy kind of album. They have pop albums, like almost techno ravey kind of album. Like
their albums kind of vary. I can remember some bands like 311. Like every one of their albums is a totally different genre almost.
Yeah. So U2
so cool. Kind of does that too.
Exactly. U2 does that. But behind it all, really the most iconic part to me from that band, besides Bono's voice, which is great, is Edge and his guitar playing. So he's my Rosie, my number 4 on my Rushmore of guitarists.
Yeah, good choice, a good choice. And I'm sure some people, because U2's like one of those bands that gets a lot of extra hate sometimes for no reason. So
look, I'm not all about that, man. There's so many bands, like, let's just address the elephant in the room while you're talking about that. Nickelback is not a bad band. And I don't care. This isn't hot take moment. Maybe we'll do a hot
Look at his photograph.
Now, listen, Nickelback certainly has some horrible songs, but to loop
I love
somebody
Nickelback.
into
I love Nickelback.
saying the band is terrible, like
Nickelback, Creed,
yes, absolutely, man.
Five Finger Death Punch. That's your favorite.
Well, okay, maybe not then. But let me not waste my time with my hot take, and let's actually get to your Rosie.
Yes. Hey, look, let's jump into my Rosie. Give you a quick criteria. I agree with everything that you said. Iconic sound. But one of the things is, again, going back to the vocalist, it's got to be something that I really want to listen to, because it's my Rushmore. It's not the world's Rushmore. If it was the world's Rushmore, they would certainly be better guitarists, or not necessarily better guitarists, but more of a mainstream, famous, popular choice. So I did leave a few of those popular choices off. But my very first one that I'm going to go with is, man, one of my favorite bands of all time. In my opinion, they died way too soon. And one of the reasons they died, one of the main reasons they died, is because this guy left the band and decided to go on, because at that time they were getting too mainstream for him. And honestly, he should have got more love than he did. I'm going with Wes Borland from one of my favorite bands, bro, the Limp Bizkit. So rocking the Limp Bizkit, had to turn the hat around for old Fred Durst. But dude, when this band came out, I remember going to the concert, and it was one of the greatest things. Like it was a part of that new metal thing that came out, Linkin Park, them, Execution. There were these, it was a mixture of rap, a mixture of metal, and then this like funky techno thing going. But without a shadow of a doubt, we're talking about iconic sounds. As soon as you hear dude, it's like, oh, I want to break stuff, right? I'm ready to just kill somebody, dude. And I remember watching, like, seeing him in concert. Wes would always like wear these, like, he had this shtick where he would wear a mask or some funny face, and I mean, he would just get it. And I remember the concert. DJ Lethal was a part of it. He moonwalked on his knees. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But just as a band, as a together, I just loved everything about them. And the thing that stuck the most, obviously, Fred was a little different as a front man for a type of band like that, because he kind of rapped and whatever. But speaking of him, have you seen him lately?
Oh man, he looks like the ultimate dad.
He looks like a dad, like seriously, like he looks like he could be like one of my dad's best friends. If you haven't checked him out, look him up. They're going on tour. I was hoping they'd come in the Atlanta area. Most of it's international. Anyways, long story short, Wes Borland is one of my favorite bands, iconic sound. And he knocked a few people off that almost everybody is going to be like, gosh, he wasn't that good. But guess what? It's my list. And it means a lot to me. So I'm going Limp Bizkit's guitarist, Wes Borland, man. So that's my Rosie. So without that, what's that?
I was just gonna say, man, we're already taking a path that many people, when they heard we're talking about guitarists, probably did not see coming.
The path of least resistance isn't today. There's
a lot of resistance probably going to this.
Yeah, but I think from here on out, though, everybody's going to love what we got, or at least admire what we've got left. I'm pretty sure.
Or
right?
understand.
All right. So let's
jump in.
TJ, Jazzy Jeff. Who's your third guy on the mountain for you, Andy? What's going on?
TJ Jazzy Jeff. If you're carving out another spot on my Rushmore of guitarists, this guy has to make it. To be honest, he made it before like we even knew this was going to be a thing. And I just know he's going to be on your list and many people's list. Again, going with the idea of an iconic sound, an unmistakable sound. My number 3, my TJ Jazzy Jeff, is Tom Morello. So Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, Audio Slave. He's got a couple other projects as well that he does. This dude makes the guitar do things that not a single other person can do or is doing, right? There are there are times where I don't know if it's a guitar, right? Where it sounds like a robot. He's doing something so cool. And then just even on top of those things, like obviously the effects and everything crazy that he does with that signature sound that Tom Morello gets when you know that it's him, is those riffs, man. There are some riffs that he does. Like, I just think specifically one of my go-to Rage songs is Killing in the Name of. You talked about it way back on episode 1, but man, that riff, there's like 18 riffs in that song, but you cannot help. It's almost like you just talked about with Wes Borland, like break stuff, right? When that thing comes in, you're just like, all right, here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah. So Tom Morello
seatbelt on
is so so awesome. He really is kind of that reason, I guess, mainly behind my criteria of signature sound and knowing who a guitarist is through the sound of an inanimate object. To me, really just speaks of so many things. There is not a single song that Rage put out, Audioslave put out, where guitar is not one of the main components of that song that just makes the song. Obviously, like every other member of every other band that he's been in, we talked about Chris Cornell last week with Audioslave, right? It is amazing, but you're hard pressed to say that Tom Morello is not the best member of any band that he's a part of. So I love Tom Morello. It brings me back to, again, kind of my teen adolescent years, listening to a lot of that 90s grunge, different. They were a different, I don't know if you really loop them in with grunge, kind of like nu metal almost even a little bit because of the rapping side of it. They were their own thing, man. It's their own genre. Again, with that signature sound of Tom Morello as the driving force behind that. So I love them.
When we talk about Rushmores, we almost have to do a Rushmore. We can't just do what's your favorite band of all time. That's just way too hard because if one thing, it's very subjective, right? To what you like, right? It's really hard to be objective when it comes to the greatest bands of all time or the greatest whatever. But what you can do is what's your greatest of a time period or a greatest of a specific type of music like nu metal. And it's really hard for me to put Rage in with a whole bunch of other bands. Like what band is close to them? And I guess maybe some of the nu metal, I guess, just because of the iconic sound. But look, I'm just gonna jump right in. You nailed it on the head. This is gonna be our first and my Rage Against the Machine. I mentioned this before in my last when I brought him up last time. And let me just also say this. Episode 1, I talked about 4 iconic bands, iconic intros, and almost all 4 of those guys had a guitarist that was going to make my list of somehow. And then even some of the guys that missed out on my list back in episode 1, those guys I was contemplating about putting in this one. So, the Metallicas of the world and stuff like that. But Tom Morello was right off the bat, when it comes to musicians, he has to be in the Rushmore of band members on whatever band you're putting together. Like this guy, like you said, he makes the guitar talk. I can't put 2 strings together and make music, but this guy does things that no one on earth can do. Often imitate it, never duplicate it, that whole idea. But like sometimes I think the guitar is actually saying things like words, like he's making it talk, like it's weird. And if you've never heard what we're talking about, or even if it's not your type of music, that's okay, man. Pull up a solo of this guy and just admire the way that he plays the instrument. And you have to put him as Hall of Fame worthy of one of the greatest people to ever touch a guitar, even if it's not your type of music. My TJ Jazzy Jeff, just like yours, is going to be Tom Morello. Now, look, I also want to say this. I would have him way higher up on this list. I almost had him as my George, but I think my last 2 are probably mainstream the greatest in my opinion. So two of the greatest. So anyways, my TJ Jazzy Jeff, Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine, our first Crushmore of the day.
Hey, great
So,
minds think alike, man. That is
woo!
fantastic.
Let's
Fantastic.
go. And look, hey, it is on my bucket list to see them. I know they're back in touring and stuff, but unfortunately to me, they're super political and super on a different stretch. And
Yeah.
I just don't know if I can walk into to watch them. But gosh, I really am sad I never got to see them. So look, hey, let's do this. Let's jump in to your number 2 because our list is moving, and man, we got 4 more amazing people to chat about. Who is your link of this list, man? Guitarist. Who'd you nail in?
My link here is the elder statesman of my Rushmore, is going way back, and there's a now I did not put the singer of this band on my Rushmore of vocalists, although I really probably should have. And I think I talked about it last week too, where it's like my Rushmore today could be different from my Rushmore tomorrow, especially when it comes to music, because it's a very kind of mood type thing. What are you feeling? But this guitarist and every member of this band easily makes a Rushmore without a doubt. And he's my link for a reason. Is Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. Bro, Jimmy Page, let me just say this. Led Zeppelin as an entire band is a primary reason that I play music, without a doubt. There is no way, man, growing up listening to their stuff. My dad, I mentioned in my Rosie that my mom was always listening to U2. My dad, one of the things that we were always listening to. Now he listened to a lot of things. We kind of cycled through things, but one consistent thing that we would always come back to was, man, he would put Led Zeppelin on. It was Black Dog, Stairway to Heaven, Immigrant Song, When the Levee Breaks. Bro, I mean, there's so many hits from Led Zeppelin. Yeah. Well, he was also, Jimmy Page was with Puff Daddy or Puff Tones or Puff the Magic Dragon, whatever his name was at that time.
He did
that. But so speaking of that song, Kashmir, man, that's another just great, awesome riff. Dude, it's
wait, I gotta act like I'm
so, yeah, just like that. That's exactly how you play it. I'm not even gonna try to duplicate it, man. There's like this dude literally plays a guitar on one of their songs in a solo that he does with a violin bow. He's got the double neck guitars. This guy is so, every member of Led Zeppelin was years and years and years and years before their time. He's one of those guitarists to me that, with Tom Morello, not many people are trying to imitate it just because how do you do it, right? He's like a mad scientist. Jimmy Page, people try to, they pull their sound, their influence from him. I'm not saying necessarily imitate him as in stealing from him, but you can hear the influence that Jimmy Page has on so many musicians throughout time, right? Man, Led Zeppelin is so good, and one of the main reasons for that is Jimmy Page's playing. So he's awesome. I think not many people are going to doubt that pick. He makes a lot of people's top, especially I was even looking before. I like to Google lists and see what other people think before. Not that I'm going to take from that, but sometimes, man, there's just so many musicians and so many songs or so many whatever we're talking about. I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting somebody. And I definitely didn't forget Jimmy Page, but he was absolutely on every single list that I was researching before putting mine together. And there's a reason for that, right? And a million people can't be wrong that Jimmy Page is one of the greatest guitarists of all time, hands down. So, hey, that's my link. So
link, man, that's a great choice. Sent you a list, kind of gave you a little teaser of what my list was going to look like. I didn't tell you 3 of my guys, but I did say this 4th spot is up for discussion. And my 4th spot actually wasn't my number 4. It was my number 2, which is this spot coming up right now for Link. I already automatically knew that I was going to do Borland and Morello, but I knew that those were more of a favorite choice of the type of music and the things that influence me. But the other two I knew were going to be absolute staples. And there was a long list of people that could land and link, and Jimmy Page was one of them for me. But I'm going to go a little different route, right? I'm going to go just a slightly just curveball, but same basically time frame. Guy that died way too young. I'm going to go with Jimi Hendrix, right? Another Jimmy.
Nice.
I'm going to nail out Jimi Hendrix. And man, just like you, I researched tons of especially like in music. Music's not my thing. I love music and I love the sounds of things. And but I don't know the artistry of things. And I've watched probably 3 videos in the last week on Jimi Hendrix and some of the things that he did. They were talking about triads and all these different things that he invented that people are using today, the way he put together music, the idea that he was left-handed, right? And he played the guitar upside down, right? So he couldn't read music because if he read music, it was written for the strings to be the other way around and stuff like that. They talked about all these different things that he did uniquely. And one of the things that the video talked about to me, and this was just one of those, is like he influences even guitarists today, and they don't even know it because of some of the stuff that he implemented in everything, Purple Haze, the Star Spangled Banner. When he did that at Woodstock, it's still kind of the staple of how to make that guitar really get into high riff. So people still talk about today. Died too soon. He was one of those guys that 27, 28. There was like 12 people that died at 27 years old.
He's a member of the 27.
He's a member of the 27 club. So yeah, that 27 club. Yep. Anyways,
so many. Yeah.
I'm gonna nail out my link being another Jimmy, and that's gonna be Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix.
Man,
so we're here at the end of our Rushmore for guitarists, and gosh, there are so many people are probably trying to figure out who we're gonna do. Both of us, I know, are gonna nail this one out with some really iconic people. But Andy, tell me, who's G-Dub for you? Who's your George, man?
Man, number one, where do I go? There's so many different ways I can go. We've named 3, and there's a billion more who are deserving of being on this list. But I'm going to tell you right now, this guy holds a special place in many people's hearts when it comes to music, right? Especially if you enjoy metal and kind of hard rock and that kind of whole feel. My number one, my George, without a doubt, is Dimebag Daryl. Dimebag Daryl, again, another one of the guys, again, talking about my criteria of iconic sounds. You hear one song come on, and there's no way you don't know that it's Dimebag, right? Obviously well known for Pantera and his whole career in Pantera. Also was just kind of starting Damage Plan when he tragically was murdered on stage. Just a crazy thing. Back in 2004, I remember I was sleeping. It was a school morning when it happened. I was sleeping, and that's how my dad woke me up that morning. Was like, he opened my door and said, "Hey, did you hear Dimebag Daryl got shot?" I'm like, "Well, good morning to you too, Dad." But it was just one of those.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't he from New Orleans?
Texas. So they're southern.
Doesn't he have some like New Orleans roots or something?
Phil Anselmo is from New Orleans. So there's,
okay.
They're all kind of from this area. So they're all, they've been in this area, and they're definitely southern staples down here. Him and his brother, Vinnie Paul, the drummer, both from Texas. But anyway, it's one of those deaths where it's like everybody remembers where they were for 9/11. Everybody remembers, especially in the South where you were for Hurricane Katrina. I remember distinctly that whole day of when Dimebag Daryl was tragically murdered. But I mean, looking even past that, just how many people he influenced. That was about the time when I was kind of in bands and metal bands and stuff like that. So There were many songs that we ripped off from from Pantera. We would cover Pantera songs. We would play them at practice and just while we were jamming and having fun. But his sound is so good, man. He does those things where, forgive me, I'm not really technically savvy with the guitar.
You're gonna play us a tune?
No, not gonna play it at all. I don't even have the ability to do it. This isn't even plugged in. But he does those. He makes his guitar squeal like none other, and it's harmonics is really what it comes down to. But he does these things where you're like at the end of a solo or in the middle of a solo where you're like, it sounds like a siren, right? Just what he does with the guitar. So, man, Dimebag is just an iconic. You mentioned it before. He's one of those guitar gods. It's just like those guys who it's like untouchable. His place. I mentioned before that my Rushmore can change from day to day. He will never not be on my Rushmore of guitarists, and more than likely won't be dethroned from my George. So Dimebag Daryl, he is fantastic. He's my George, my number one on my Rushmore. Kirk, let's move to you and let's finish this thing up. Who you got for your number one on your Rushmore?
I just want to say I admire Dimebag Daryl. I admire his fans. There's a ton of fans. I remember distinctly the falling out when it happened, and because it was such a tragedy type, it was like a crazy, like you don't ever hear about those type of things. Like you would expected him to like overdose, I guess. I mean, that's just the modern, that's the rock style, right? But like how it went down, I was just like, what? But anyways, I wasn't a huge Pantera fan, but I absolutely can admire his tune, and I love Walk. I mean, that song just, yeah. When Rob Van Dam used to come out to it, and I was like, who is this? Because this is, I would want to kick everybody's tail if this was my entrance song. So anyways, yeah, Dimebag Daryl, great choice. Look, my George, let's keep going, man. My George, to my opinion, as soon as this came up, as soon as we said guitarists, actually, as soon as we said musicians, there are a few people that pop in each one, and this is the one that popped in for me. I'm born in 78. Most of my influences of music is either late 70s, most of the 80s, early 90s. That's high school for me. And to me, the number one guitarist out of that frame is none other than Eddie Van Halen.
Come on. Yeah.
Dude, Eddie Van Halen is just that sound, Jump, Panama. I mean, regardless if it was with David Lee Roth, Sammy Hagar, the iterations that happened in throughout, him and his brother were in there, both Van Halen. They took the name, but he passed away, just a year or two, not very long ago. I remember watching just like reliving some of the things like that solo he does with Eruption. Every time I see him and he's playing, he does things that I feel, like I play sports, and sometimes I challenge people like, oh, you can hit a fastball, right? Or you can't. To me, this guy is throwing 102 every time he gets on the stage. You can't hit him. You can't touch him. He's just insane with the guitar. He had that signature look with the red and black and white stripes. So every time you see that, people paint their cars like this. People paint, just get phone covers like of Eddie and what he played. And if I'll challenge you to something, Andy, if you haven't seen it already, he had an interview right before he died, probably like a month or so before he died, and it's like an hour long. And it was some of the most riveting, he's such a good guy, just a great human being. His son is, Wolf, is his name Wolfgang? Wolfgang Van Halen? Yeah, his son actually took his name away because he didn't want to live in his dad's spotlight. And then now I think he's gone back to it. But he's trying to break into the business, and he was kind of talking about his son and different things of the family and the ups and downs of just music. And he lived a pretty long life for a musician. And to me, he is 80s rock. He's 80s hair band. He's everything about it. And so I'm going to go George right off the top. And I'm proud to say it, Eddie Van Halen.
Fantastic list, man. There's no denying he's another one of those guys, guitar gods, just he's in that, right? It's almost unfair, right? You know, it's almost unfair for the other guitarists. Like they don't have a chance to get on the Rushmore because there's some of these guys who are just staples without a doubt. They're going to be on there. But man, yeah, I love that choice. I love your whole Rushmore, man. I like how you kind of go from some new metal things into some old classics, right? And just some staples there. So, wow, fantastic job. Let us know. Hey, we're wrapping the show up now, but what do you guys think? There are people out there, and we were kind of discussing this before. There's a lot of YouTube channels with, I'm just going to say it, they're just some snobs. There's some snobs out there, right? When it comes to music, like
underrated, overrated, elevated, whatever.
Yeah, decorated, whatever. Listen,
dude, I was watching a list, and I just have to say it. I was watching a list of the top 100 guitarists of all time. Jimi Hendrix didn't make it. I don't think Jimmy Page made it. Eric Clapton didn't make it. Steve Vai didn't make it. I don't think B.B. King made it. I was sitting there like, who put this list together? But you know who did make it? Skrillex and Jam Master Jay. I about threw, like, I was like, what? Do they even know music? Who did this list? Right. And so, yeah, anyways.
So we say that all to say this. You're going to disagree with us. And that's awesome. Everyone in here, especially if you say that Skrillex, I didn't even know Skrillex played guitar. So that's news.
Apparently he just scratches a guitar. So,
okay. Well, hey, there's that. And maybe he is good. I don't know. I'm not judging him. I'm judging the fact that he's on a list and Hendrix isn't. But anyway, that's for another discussion.
If you don't make your top 5, that's one thing. Your top 100?
Yeah. Give me 100 other guitarists better.
Musicians better than him.
Anyway, so you guys are probably going to disagree, or maybe you're going to have some things that we didn't think about. Maybe there are songs or musicians or guitarists specifically who mean something to you. You have some personal tie-in. I kind of talked about growing up in my household and the music that was played in my house, and that was a strong part of the reason why I picked some of the guitarists I did. Hey, we would love to hear your story. We would love to hear what it is that gives you that kind of personal tie-in to the guitarist or to the band or anything like that. So hit us up in the comments, send us messages, let us know. Let's have some fun interaction together. And Kirk, man, we are halfway through Music March, man.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
We're forming a good band.
Next week, we're jumping into bassists. And then we're finishing off with drummers, man. It's going to be a great month.
I need a lot of time to prepare for my drummers list.
That's why we put it at the end.
But so if we were kind of talking about this before too, like if we take our Georges of every instrument of every week, essentially we're forming our greatest band we can. So right now, who's in your band of Georges?
So I was just about to say right now, Steve Perry is my lead, right? My lead guy.
Yes.
And then Eddie Van Halen is playing on the. So
I don't know how you could get much better than that. Mine right now is Chris Cornell and Dimebag Daryl. So I would be very interested to hear what that band sounds like. I think it would be so cool. But anyway, so we're forming our Rushmore band. Right. Maybe we'll put something together.
We gotta figure out who the bassist and the drummer is for this band, dude. And we get the Rushmore Band, baby.
Gonna be awesome. So hey, we love you guys so much. Make sure you're liking, you're sharing, you're subscribing to our channel. Make sure you're hitting the bell, getting all of the notifications when we post new content. Let your friends know, and let's keep commenting and keep doing life together. So we love you guys so much. Any final words, Kirk?
Well, no, because I think we're going to let them know what our final piece is with our second segment, right?
Well, that's right. You guys thought we were done at 4. We've got an awesome segment for you that we're bringing back from earlier in
I think the third week, man, Inspirational Speakers. It was his birthday. Betty White.
Yeah, so let's bring it back and let's go to our final segment that we like to call It's All About the Benjamins. But what are we doing special today, Kirk?
It's all about the breaking Benjamins.
Let's get it.
All right, Andy, we are going to go in with our second segment. It's one of our favorite segments, all about the Breaking Benjamins, one of those other kind of new metal rock 90s. I don't know where they fit in, but somewhere around there. They're kind of great in concert band, Breaking Benjamin. So all about your Breaking Benjamin. And for you guys that don't know, Benjamin almost made Mount Rushmore. And on his birthday, we introduced this as if we're going to have an honorable mention. A lot of people like to do top 5. This is our number 5. And so we're going to get one more shot to try and get somebody on the mountain. If we're going to carve somebody out, who is it going to be? Andy, how are you going to finish off your mountain, right? Who's going to be the 5th guy that you're going to carve in the side of the building?
Yeah. So here's, this is always a good segment to do when it's very, very, very difficult for us to limit it down to 4. And this is definitely one of those episodes. So this is fitting. I probably need 78 more Benjamins to fully grasp what I want. But if you're giving me one more spot, one honorable mention, what we're going to do, this is going to be really interesting. My Benjamin is actually a Crushmore with somebody on your Rushmore.
Come on.
I don't know if we've done that before. See if you can follow Rushmore. He didn't make my Rushmore. He was right there. I went back and forth in that number 4 spot. And people are going to probably hate me that he didn't even make it into my Rushmore and be like, what are you talking about? How did you not do it? My number 5, my Benjamin of my Rushmore is Eddie Van Halen. Man, I know, and he was your George, so he did technically make both of our Rushmores, although he made mine in a Benjamin spot. But man, he's just one of those guys. Every reason that you kind of shared before, I'm not adding really anything new to it other than just listen to him. I mean, there's like, if you listen to Eruption, right? Eruption is just a guitar solo, an extended guitar solo. And there are things that he's doing on there that I'm not quite sure how. Like, how is he doing that? There's guitarists where it baffles their minds today to try to grasp how he gets so much speed and precision and everything through that. Man, you mentioned it too. Like, he just seems like a good guy. Like, every shot of Eddie Van Halen when he's playing, and it's crazy. This dude's like shredding like crazy, and he's the happiest guy ever, right? He just looks. And you talked about it too before, and this was always kind of a funny thought. Doesn't really talk about him as a guitarist, but it's a funny thought I've always had. Like, his son is a musician as well and is very, very talented. And can you imagine though, like being Eddie Van Halen's son and like not being good at guitar? Like, can you imagine Van Halen plumbing services? Like, it just doesn't work. Like,
well, I mean, it's kind of like the LeBron James and Bronny thing, right?
Right.
I mean, it's like,
man, it's tough.
Like Michael Jordan's son wasn't that great at basketball. He played JUCO, but Tom Brady's got a son coming up.
Yeah. So, man, but that's just always a funny thought.
You have to be good. I mean, I'm sure dad's like, hey kids, it's cold outside. Go get the guitar. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So anyway, but Eddie Van Halen, he's my honorable mention. Just go listen to him. If you need any explanation, listen to the guy play. Anybody also who has like a signature guitar design too. My George was, which Dimebag.
I also, on that show that I told you to go watch, the documentary or whatever, he talks about how that happened and how he bought that guitar and how that paint job happened. Which I was fascinated about that, because that's one of those things, like I talked about, like, I want to know how the band started. I want to know how this, like, what made you do that? That's just creatively how I think. And so that's a cool part.
So Eddie Van Halen, hey, he's my Benjamin for my Rushmore, my honorable mention. Kirk, close us out with your number 5, your final honorable mention, Benjamin.
Well, I'm gonna shock the world, right? I am gonna come out and pick one of your Rushmores for my Rushmore. I mean, there's only a couple guys I can pick from. People are probably like Dimebag, or is it But I'm gonna go with Jimmy Page. And look, here's the thing. Just the same reason you said you didn't put Eddie on yours. is pretty reminiscent to why Jimmy didn't make mine. And top 4, he's definitely, like, I fought. I fought with this spot. I'm going to tell you right now. If Eric Clapton don't make your top 10, I don't even want to hear you. Right? Like, I'm trying to figure out how I can get him on the list. And some of those other guys that I named out that didn't make that top 100, Steve Vai and BB King, and there's just so many guys that are really good in the guitar. Jimmy Page, though, for all the reasons you said, every band member could be on the mountain for their specific side. They probably have the best drummer ever to hit anything, right? Yeah. The guitar's great, the vocals are great. They're just amazing. And Jimmy Page is some of those sounds, those intros, we talked about them. Like, there's so many different reasons why he is amazing, and they do things that weren't typical of the day, right? You have to remember, when these guys were coming out, rock and roll really hadn't been around that long, much less heavier rock. And they were kind of the turn that they were a group that kind of started to leave even the Beatles, right? Because, those guys were doing stuff that was different, and they kind of brought us into the next generation, just like the Nirvanas of the world and Pearl Jams of the world for grunge. They were kind of the staple for classic rock and what we think of today. Every song that they sing, I don't care if you like music or not. If I play a song, you might not know who sings it. You might not know who the musicians are. You know those songs. And Stairway to Heaven, I mean, things like that. Kashmir, you've heard it. Commercials, TV, movies, whatever, they're playing it because they are probably on the mountain as the best band, top 4 band ever. I mean, if you're going to do that and try to figure that out. So Jimmy Page he beat out so many good people, but I would not feel complete if I didn't put him in this list. So Jimmy Page is going to be my Breaking Benjamin, and my number 5, my honorable mention. So look, I'm going to challenge the folks out there, right? We're building our Rushmore of greatest band members ever to put together that band. Where are you at with that? Where are you at with your greatest band members? If you haven't seen our vocalists already, go back and check it out. Tell us who your number 1 vocalist and your number 1 guitarist is, and we're going to hit bassist and drummer next. And we're going to put together some of the coolest bands we could ever imagine, right? Yeah. So I'm going to challenge you guys that. Put that down in the comments, and let us know what you think.
Yeah. It's been so fun so far. Halfway through Music March. Really just kind of thinking through my head what these songs would sound like with all of these members in the same band is always an interesting thing. But yeah, join us next week. Next week, we're going to talk about bassists. Man, I'm just giving you a little foreshadowing, my thoughts on bass and drums. A band is not a band without the next 2 instruments. I mean, without a doubt, there's no way that it works without the backbone of the band. And that's what we're going to wrap up March with.
Honestly, those are 2 of my favorite parts of the band, to be honest. Absolutely. I love the bass lines.
Absolutely. So, hey, we love you guys. Like, share, subscribe, let your friends know about it, comment, hit the bell, do all of those awesome things. And we'll catch you guys next week. Let's wrap it up like we always do. Remember that this is the Rushmore Show, where it's all about your top 4 and nothing more.